host, Scott Weatherly, and today we're doing something a bit different. We're doing a new video. I've introduced our top 10s, now I'm introducing a series of videos called Is It Really That Bad? And I'm going to be looking back at a whole host of films across all the 20th century and literally asking the question, is it really that bad? There are films that are derided by fans and critics and panned, and everybody says that everyone just jumps on the bandwagon and says they're rubbish. Is that really the case? Are they that bad? We're going to start with Spawn from 1997. But we are going to go on to other comic book films. Judge Dredd, Batman and Robin, also from 1997. But we'll go back further. Superman 4. We're going to pick up Superman Returns, maybe. And a whole lot. Someone's actually recommended Ishtar, Halloween 3, all those kinds of films are going to be in this package. We're going to go back and we're going to review them and reassess them, and to see, again, are they really that bad? So let's talk about Spawn. So Spawn, 1997, directed by Mike Dippe. Now, let's be honest, not heard of this guy before, not heard of him since, and I'm not going to worry about him. I think he's a little bit irrelevant in this story. The movie's based on the comic by Todd McFarlane, which was started, I think, in 1992, one of the early first Image comics. As of making this video, they're knocking on about 270 odd, 280 issues. So it's still going strong. Todd McFarlane has been at the helm pretty much, well, since day one. So this is his character. This is obviously part of those, the point of Image. He owns the rights to this character. Which again we'll get into with this film, and he's been at this and written it's pretty much all his issues. No matter how many times he's said, I'm stepping away, I'm going to give the writing to somebody else, he can't let go of that at all. I mean, others people have contributed to this, and then a couple of big names in the early days. Alan Moore wrote a couple of issues, Dave Smith wrote a couple of these issues, and Grant Morrison has also written a couple of issues, all before issue 20. So those first 2-3 years were really where he started that. And then later on he tried to hand the reins over. And again, most recently they did a reboot, a soft reboot. And again he tried to hand the reins off to somebody else. And within about 4 or 5 issues he was back in. The guy just cannot leave this alone. Understandable. This is his baby. This is his character, and I completely understand that. Spawn is fundamentally the backbone of McFarlane Industries, if you should call it that. And I praise the guy for doing this, because he's also tried other things. But Spawn is the comic that gave him the money to then create McFarlane Toys, and by doing McFarlane Toys, he was able to give us. There was all the sports characters he did. There was all the massive Spawn characters. Check this bad boy out. I love this. But also icons of horror, tortured souls. These amazingly detailed. If I've got all the tortured souls here as well, these are great detailed McFarlane toys. So Spawn has actually got a lot to answer for from the comics world and the world. But that's not the point. We're here to talk about the movie. So what is the movie about? What's the story about? Okay. So what is the film? A Special Forces Black Ops soldier named Al Simmons is betrayed by his boss. He works for a shady possible government organisation. It's never quite clear in either the comic or this. Sometimes they refer to the CIA, sometimes they refer to something else, but they're basically sort of like an international spy agency off the books, a little bit Man from U.N.C.L.E., kind of deal. Anyway, he's betrayed. He's the best there is, and he's betrayed and killed. And in doing so, he gets sent to hell, and he obviously goes to hell for all the killings he's done. Despite thinking he's been doing it for the right reasons, he ends up going to hell. And when there, he makes a deal with a devil, not the devil, but a devil of one of the layers of hell, Malbolgia. And the deal is that he will lead Malbolgia's even hellish demon army if he is given the chance to go back and see his wife, Wanda. And the twist is, as there's always a twist when you're dealing with a devil, he is returned to Earth 5 years later with a fuzzy memory and as a burnt corpse. So this isn't the Al Simmons we saw at the start of the film, the very good looking and martial artist Michael J. White. This is a prosthetic laden Michael J. White playing a burnt corpse. He's more Freddy Krueger than sort of you would expect. And the fact is, he has this fuzzy memory, and he's trying to get back to his wife, and he can't. And then he finds out that actually he's a pawn in the war between heaven and hell, and that hell is trying to take over the earth and all the souls, and that sort of thing. And it ends up being a big fight. That's it. The plot is simple, to an extent. They've overcomplicated it because you then get the introduction of his boss, who portrayed him, Jason Wynn, played by Martin Sheen. And this idea that they are setting up a chemical weapon that is going to destroy everything on the earth. Now, I don't understand. This is the real weird thing about this film. The plot, I'm going to sit with the plot for a few minutes. The plot should be simple. In the comics, it's pretty simple. Okay? He was killed off. One of his partners, Chapel, was paid off to kill him. And he was done so that they could get what he wanted. And then he could become General of Hell's Army. It's that simple. In this, there's all this extra stuff about Armageddon, the destruction of the world, that I still don't understand what Martin Sheen gains from it. It's a bit like Loki, being given Australia if Thanos can take over the world or whatever in Avengers. It makes no sense, really, because there's not much to cover. That makes more sense. But in this, they're eradicating life on Earth. Like, surely that would kill Martin Sheen's character as well. All right, we're getting lost in that. Is it really that bad? The plot in this is okay. All right, we'll get onto that in a minute. So that's it. So I've got into it. So that's the plot. So yeah, the plotting in this is dreadful. But it's of its period, and this is the thing that I find fascinating about this. Yes, the dialogue in this, some of the dialogue in this is horrendous, very childish, very blunt, and sort of like on the nose. They don't really. There's no sophistication in this dialogue or the script. The essence is there. There's something there that could have been developed. Every time I watch this film, and I do rewatch it because I actually quite enjoy it, but there's something in this where you think, if this had been given a couple more passes by someone with a better grasp of dialogue, something so much better could have been made. But why is it typical of the age? Like, they took what was in the comic and they made something else. That's typical Hollywood. They do that. The other thing is that this was the 90s, and the 90s were a really weird time. There was a real sense of like nihilism towards the end of the 90s. You get this period of sort of like, it's about from 94 to 2000 really. So it's the better part of the decade where there's this real growing fear of the year 2000. We had the Y2k Bug Fear. They had the Christian expectation that this was actually going to be the rise of the Antichrist or Satan. That there was this real sense of impending doom surrounding the turn of the millennium. And Hollywood plugged into this. And if you look at like Hollywood, not just Hollywood, but like entertainment in general. In Hollywood, you have this example, Spawn, talking about destruction, but you've also got films like Stigmata, plugging into the sort of the Christian fear of the return of Satan. End of Days, both of Gabriel Byrne, weirdly enough, but End of Days with Arnold Schwarzenegger taking on Satan on that night, Millennium Night. Strange Days. What else is there film-wise? The Prophecy with Christopher Walken. Again, another thing, this whole idea, this biblical idea of the war between heaven and hell was quite prevalent in the 90s. It leaked onto TV. Think of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This thing about the encroaching evil coming from this distant medieval past and coming through to become a part of the modern world. And taking something from us and becoming a true threat. It was a real bizarre thing that happened. The X-Files is another example, probably a bit more grounded, which is odd to say because it's more sci-fi based. But even in that, there's this sense of this impending doom, whether it be from outer space or from a biblical source. So the 90s were, although there was a sort of a sense of almost like euphoria and success and growth and comfort in the large part of the 90s, it almost feels like there's a cynicism that goes with that, okay, we're doing well, the economy's booming, we've got the rave culture, everyone's taking E, a lot of people were taking E, it was a real happy time, boom, 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 boom. But how long can this last? Something's going to burst this bubble, I'm not sure about this, something's going to ruin this. You even get The Matrix at the end of the decade that says, quite frankly, yeah, none of that was real. You know, you are actually a battery in a machine that actually you do not matter in the grand scheme of things. And all this prosperity and all this growth that you thought you were enjoying, it's a dream. It's an absolute, it's fabrication. So this decade that everyone sort of sees as this period of growth and prosperity, there's a real sense of dread and worry that sort of underpinned it all. So that's sort of what I think where this plugs into this. It's the comic book equivalent of that. Now the problem comes though that they don't know how to translate that fear and that dread into a comic book film. Now let's be fair, Todd McFarlane, when writing this, didn't either. His comic is good. I actually really enjoy the Spawn series. I've been collecting the big oversized hardback editions and I think they're fantastic. The stories are daft. They're incredibly 90s, as in the comic. They're very extreme 90s. I'm talking like, big guns, ridiculous sized guns, the Rob Liefeld sized guns, patches, bullet belts, all that kind of jazz. These are the things that are 90s comics. That was almost like a staple of image in the early 90s. But Spawn developed. Like, Spawn as a character progressed. If you get from about sort of issue 70-ish onwards, it moved from being this sort of like action, I don't say horror, but yeah, almost like action horror, to being a more, it leans less into the action and more into the horror as you get on. And it leans into that whole idea of the war between heaven and hell. And it grows in emotion. And I think Todd McFarlane grows as a writer. And so I think those issues become a lot more interesting. Especially the lead up from about the early 70 issues to 100. That 30 issue run is actually excellent. We're not talking Alan Moore excellent or Warren Ellis or Grant Morrison excellent. It's not that tier. But for what it is, I really love it. I think it's a fantastic series of comics. So I highly recommend the books if you can find them. Anyway, so how do we translate it to film? Well, you can't. I think it's one of those things of if you're going to go, you can't go to issue 70 and beyond without having to address those first 5-6 years or whatever of comics. And that's what this film is. This film is an origin story that's trying to develop to get to the point. I could see where this could go, and if they'd had several sequels, they could have got there. But why do people hate this film? Now, I put it out there about this when I mentioned it, and a lot of people came back and go, "No, I really enjoy that film. It's daft. It's silly." It is, but people did come back and were like, "It's garbage. It's utter rubbish. Why talk about it? Forget about it." Why do people dismiss this film? Well, it's easy. The standard of filmmaking in this is dreadful. Now, the budget was low. They clearly didn't believe in this superhero. And despite us not being able to move for what I would suggest are quality superhero films in the modern era, or at least mostly quality superhero films, that wasn't the case in the 90s. The 90s were a bit hit and miss, let's be honest. We had the Judge Dredd in 1995. We'll get on to another episode. You had Steel with Shaquille O'Neal, sort of like, the Superman spin-off. You had the series of pulp heroes, The Shadow, The Rocketeer, The Phantom, those ones. And then you also get like The Mask, the Jim Carrey vehicle, The Mask, all the way through to Blade, and eventually sort of The Matrix, those sort of stuff. It was a real hit and miss decade for those sorts of things. No bad thing, you get a whole variety there. It's a bit more, if I'm honest, the variety in 90s superhero and comic book based films was probably a wider variety and a more depth of variety than you get now. It's Marvel and DC, maybe some bits in between, which I think is a real shame. Though there are so many properties that should be explored that aren't being explored because, again, the big two are holding up the tentpoles. So, yeah, does it stand up to those? It doesn't, because there was clearly no confidence in this character. They didn't fully understand the concept, and I think McFarlane was struggling to translate it himself at this period. Because issue 70 comes in late 1998, which is a year after this film was released. So I still think when this film was being produced, McFarlane was still in that action-orientated, that heavy action comic, the extreme Spawn era, and I think that's sort of a problem. The other problem is, the budget wasn't there to realise the vision. The CGI in this film is dreadful. Like, literally dreadful throughout. I don't think there is any application of computer animated effects in this film that would ever be described as good. at all. From the moment the film starts with Al Simmons, in action doing an assassination on some international, government body, something you're not entirely sure. He blows up a plane. There are parts of the explosion that look like bad sort of computer game effects from they're like 8-bit, not even 16-bit. They're dreadful. It is awful. You later get the cape. Now the cape, the Spawn costume, the cape from the comics is a huge part of it. It's almost like a living entity. The idea of this cape, necroplasm, being a living symbiont with, I wonder where he got that from, being a part of him. Okay, so the cape does do things in the film, but it looks so flat and so animated. It is dreadful. It is awful to watch. In parts, it's painful to watch. That aside, though, what else? I mean, the thing is, like I say, the bad CG. It's the fact that there's an aesthetic in this. They've got it confused. There's a real goth aesthetic in this, and it's entwined with other bits and pieces. We've said about the dialogue as well. They try to get goth across. They want it to be this idea of it's cool and dark and grungy and edgy and all this other stuff. This isn't your daddy's superhero kind of stuff. Unfortunately, what it comes across as is I'm a 14-year-old boy and I'm dark, and that's what it comes. To the extent there's actually a scene in this film in a graveyard with 3 heavy metal wannabe Satanists. And they've got the pentagram out, they've got a goat skull with blood, and they like lamp a knife in it. It's like, call on my father, Satan! Nothing happens. And they make a joke saying, dude, I told you we should have had a bigger pentagram. Terrible accent, sorry. But the point of the fact is, they're almost, it's almost a jibe at their own audience. That's who they're trying to get into the crowd. That's who they want in to see this film. But they're making fun of them. That's what I'm saying. They're confused. The clown character in this. The clown is a demon that's sent to Earth by Malbolgia to be Spawn's demonic guide. And he provides one part of the exposition, played by John Leguizamo, who is actually in this. We'll get into him. He's actually excellent. But the point I'm saying is, this confused aesthetic is, at one point they get those. He says, why does heaven get all the good followers and we get all the rubes? Don't pick on the people that you want to see this film. Like, this was made for 14-year-old kids, but you want those kids that think they're edgy and think they're cool, because of this stuff. You want the guys that were probably listening to the new metal that was coming at that point. Don't rip into them, especially when your soundtrack's so heavy on them as well. This is what I'm saying. This film did not, when it was being written, thought it was edgy, thought it was funny, but didn't know who it was targeted at. And that's the real problem. Why this film, I think, it sort of misses for so many people. Because the people that should like it don't like it because it sort of makes fun of them and goes too far into the kiddiness. And then but everyone else then looks at it and goes, oh, it's a bit too metal and grungy and rubbish for me. It's so in between. It's trying to please too many masters. Should have just hit that mark. Anyway. In fact, trying to please everybody is a really good point. So the next one I will say is there are 2 parts to this film that really bother me. You've got the exposition-heavy characters, the clown character and Cogliostro, played by God knows who. I don't know, don't care. He's rubbish. They're your exposition characters, and they almost become, and they are played like this in the comics as well to an extent, like the devil and the angel on Spawn's shoulders. The clown character, the demon character, saying, "Do this, do that, kill him, do the evil stuff. You are the demon." Hellspawn, so this is your job now, this is how your costume works, and you should be doing this, for Hell's Army, for Malbolgia, your new boss. And then you have Cogliostro, who it's sort of explained is part of this whole battle and whole war later on, but he's acting as the angel on the follow. You don't have to follow that path, follow the path of light, be a good character. You can be the one that ends this conflict, or you can bring balance to the force. We'll get onto that in a minute. That's what we're seeing here. Okay, this is a tug between light and dark, and Hellspawn or Al Simmons is in the middle, and that's sort of played out a lot in the comic, where he's actually constantly, I want to quit, I don't care, all I want is my wife Wanda, but he still gets pulled back in, and that's played a lot better in the comics, and it's easier in the comics because you've got this whole arc, up to now 200 or however many, but up to the first 100 issues deals with all that excellently. You got to do that. This needed more of a writing, because it sort of dabs into that, but at no point do they really really feel like he's making a decision, like, or at any point really do I feel like he's gonna fall to the dark. They talk about him being an anti-hero and the fact he is a hellspawn, and there's moments when it's like, yeah, lean into your anger, lean into your aggression, lean into your revenge. Anger leads to. I could go there. I really could. I could load this with Yoda quotes, and it would feel like that. That's what I'm going to get that in a sec. But at no point do I feel like Spawn is gonna strike down the Emperor or strike down his father. It never feels like that, because he's constantly. They are too concerned that you won't like Spawn. To the extent they give him a kid sidekick. Jesus Christ, I hate this. Kid sidekick. It happened in RoboCop 3. It happens in... God, I'm so glad it doesn't happen in Blade. But it happens in so many films where they're like, look, he is a goodie. He has a kid sidekick. They give him this homeless kid sidekick that becomes an orphan. Like the clown character, Violator, kills his father. And he hangs around. And it becomes like a... At that point, the decision's been made. Like, Spawn's a goodie, and he's never going to do anything bad because he won't harm this kid. It just... Sidekick. Kid sidekicks ruin films. This film is not built for those kid audiences. I don't know who this film was targeted by giving him a kid sidekick. Get rid of it. Confusion throughout the script. Okay, so we're going through the bad. I'm really railing on this film, and I shouldn't be. But you can tell there's something else I actually really quite like about this film that they did get. It's very basic, and it's very bog standard, but this is the Campbellian hero's journey to a T. It's like someone had the book open on that hero journey steps and was like, right, okay, call to action. Okay, yeah, we've got that. So he dies, he gets given his action. Doom. Resistance. Yep, says no. Okay, we've got that one. Meets mystical character that explains powers. Yeah, we've got that too. Okay, we've got Coglator and the demon Violator clown character. Boom! They've literally gone through that step by step. This is the Campbellian hero's journey to a T. Like, literally, you can't. I swear to God, there's a more modern version. I think there's like an 8-step version that was made in about 2007. A real sort of stripped down version, and you can sit as a checklist. And there are moments in this film where you can go, "Yep, done." Now, as a hero archetype, it's expected. That's what happens. Everyone, It's Star Wars. That's what Luke Skywalker is. It's there. Boom, 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 boom. So how is it that Luke Skywalker became this huge part of the Star Wars franchise and Spawn became a bit of a joke? Well, first let's go back to what it was before. It's confused. Okay? That tells me, again, they want this to be anti-hero. They want the pressure to be that it will turn to the dark side. But at no point in the first Star Wars film, do you ever feel Luke will go to the dark side, because he's not there to do that. In the first film, he's there to become a hero. There's that threat of it in the background. It's not till the sequels that you get that. But they don't get. So why don't give a hero a Campbellian hero's journey if you want us to worry that he might not be the hero, unless you're going to pull the rug out? It's poor storytelling. So, what do I like about this film? Because I do like this film. I've got a real nostalgia for this film. And I can watch it and I can laugh and I can enjoy it in a bad movie way. Because it is a bad movie. But let's be clear. The soundtrack to this film is 90s banging. I've got the soundtrack on CD and I do listen to it regularly. It's got the usual 90s characters in there. You have got some Marilyn Manson. You've got some Metallica, Slayer. All these characters are in there, doing a sort of mixed new metal dance. Extreme. It's extreme! I wonder how many times I'm going to say that for a 90s film. But it's in there. It's a cracking score. It's really good. Let's go. The soundtrack, the songs made for this film are cracking. They are so good. Very dated. Like, if you were to pick it up now, if I was to hand it to someone, a teenager now and listen to it, they would probably not get it. It's not. But from a 90s point of view, it hit that nail on the head for me. It was on high rotation for me for a long time. I've railed on the computer effects in this, and I will constantly rail on the computer effects for this film. It's awful. But the creature designs and the practical effects and makeup in this film are outstanding. I will not hear anything bad about some of these. The Spawn costume and the burn makeup that Michael J. White has to wear throughout this film looks awesome. And the Spawn costume is beautiful. It looks, when the mask is on or without the mask, It's awesome. So the clown, played by John Leguizamo, is a short, dumpy character. I haven't got him down here at the moment. But John Leguizamo must be in his, like, he's 5 foot plus, obviously like 5'5" to 5'10"ish. So he's not short. So to do this character, he did it like squatting down and sort of, you know, doing duck walk everywhere. And he looks the part, like a dumpy, fat, weird looking clown. And the face makeup and the eyes and the hair, everything. It's comic accurate. Like, it's what I consider to be comic accurate, and I love it. And he goes for that part. We'll get into that in a minute. But then when he translates into the Violator, the transformation is awful, because it's all CG again. But when they have the practical Violator character in this, it looks the business. Like, you are reaching into that demonic horror element that this film should lean on a lot more. And I really wish it did. So the guys with the practical effects in this, well done, because it looks awesome. The makeup effects look good. And they rescue this film on so many levels. But let me talk about the actors in this. There are 3 main players in this that need to be noted. And I'll work from the bottom up as the good and the bad. You have Martin Sheen playing Jason Wynn, Al Simmons, his former boss. And he's been told he's in a comic book film. Okay, so he said, you're in a comic book film and here's the character, here's the script, you're the villain. He's clearly gone back and watched Gene Hackman in Superman. He's probably watched Jack Nicholson as the Joker in Batman '89. And then gone, that's what a villain is. He's a scene-stealing, scene-chewing, you know, over-the-top, crazy person. And that's what he's going for. Like, he is going all out to be this sort of like cigar chomping mastermind, sort of like, he wants to be a sort of an over the top Bond villain, but he's not good. He's not good. He's massively miscast in this. Someone younger and I think sleazier would have been better for this character. Someone sort of real. In this era, I mean, he's probably a bit old for that by this point, but. If you were to think Michael Douglas is Gordon Gekko from Wall Street, okay, that's who I would see as Jason Wynn. That sort of like Jason Wynn to me is someone who did well in the 80s and has turned that into a career in arms dealing and all that kind of thing. And I think that would have been better. A real sleazy, greedy is good, manipulative bastard kind of character. So yeah, it's a shame. But the top 2, let's get to John Leguizamo, who plays the clown, nails it for me. He's let down by sophomoric dialogue and bad jokes. The clown in this is played almost to be the Mask, or the Tommy Lee Jones in Batman Forever. So it's that sort of, like, again, over the top, like constant jokes, but he's going for it, like he's committing to this role. So I accept him, and I actually think that, like, despite some of the bad jokes and some of the bad dialogue, yeah, I actually really enjoy watching him. Also, full credit to John Leguizamo for this. The dude eats live maggots off a pizza, like legit. So anyone willing to commit to a comic book film and do that, you're getting points from me. That is badass. Fair play to you. And John Leguizamo, like I say, he was probably clearly trying to live down the Super Mario Brothers film from the early 90s. Oof, you didn't quite make it in this one, John, but, you know, fair play to you for eating the maggots. And finally get Michael J. White, who best known for as a martial artist, actor, never really a leading man, not the top actor, I wouldn't say, but to play Spawn physically, I think the guy's great. I think he gives it a real physicality and an aggression, and there are certain scenes in this where I completely buy it. I really do. I buy into him as Spawn, and I think I could see him as that. He's the person, if you were to look at him physically and in certain scenes, he is Al Simmons. I buy it. Like, he seems to nail that balance between caring husband, doting husband, and badass soldier. Like, I buy that. Like, he just seems like a genuinely nice guy, and you just believe in what he's doing. But then when it's sort of like, when it comes to being Spawn, and he's looking for areas for more pathos, and he's got to do the drama and some of the other bits, and even some of the comedy, you know, he's got to sort of hit those. There's some timing issues. doesn't quite nail it. But he's good in a 90s fashion. He's good. So I've really got a sort of, you know, a fair play for doing that. So I do think there's great elements to this film. It's fun. It's daft. It's really silly. Is it as bad as people say it is? No. Okay, people rail on this film as being one of the worst films in the 90s. I've literally heard people it's one of the worst superhero films in the 90s. It is not. It's really not. When you know you've got Steel out there, it's not. Is it worse than Judge Dredd? We'll have to get onto that one at one point, but I actually think I prefer this. No, they've both got elements I love, but this is probably better than Judge Dredd. There are parts in this I really enjoy. And I think it deserves a revisit. If I had the money, I could pull a George Lucas. I would pull out the original negative and I would if I could have the money, I would give this a 4K restoration. I would redo the computer animation on it, clean up everything, the cape, the hell. Oh my God, when they visit hell, the fact that Mel Bolger's mouth doesn't move, despite a gruff dog-like voice coming out of it. It's a mess. So forget that bit. I would keep the score. It's amazing. I would love to do that and then give it to Arrow and be like, "Look, Arrow, here's your first superhero release. Do that. It's amazing." It would be amazing. But this film it's confused. It's a weird mashup between like the 1989 Batman and Blade. You know, the problem being that, or the difference being that both of those films knew to an extent what they were going for. Now, I know that the 89 Batman has sort of fallen out of favour a little bit of late, with it not being a Batman film, but at least with Tim Burton he had an aesthetic and he knew what he wanted to achieve, and he had a great cast to do it with. And with Blade, at least you've got an established character that sort of has an MO and and you have the great Wesley Snipes playing the character. So those films are way above this. Don't get me wrong. Those films stand head and shoulders above Spawn, but it's a mashup of the two. It's in a very 90s way. If you're going to go back and watch a 90s superhero film, this is a really good example of that. Should it be revisited? Yes. Yes, it should. If you are a fan of... If you enjoyed Venom that came out recently, okay, I recommend that you go back and give this a film a squiz. Just as a sort of a Saturday afternoon, Friday night with a few beers, go back and try this out. I think you'll enjoy it. Is it as bad? Is it all that bad? Is it really that bad? No, it's really not. I've railed on the film. There are parts of this film that aren't dreadful. As I said, the computer animation, the dialogue in it, some of the acting is very iffy. But is it that bad compared to other films? No. Spawn is good fun. It's a fantastic romp. So, out of 10, I'm going to give each of these films a score out of 10 as we go through. So let's give it a score out of 10. I would solidly give this a 7 out of 10. For me, it's a solid 7 out of 10. It's a good film. It's got some great action in it. It's got some good, some great moments of sort of horror. And if you can follow along and enjoy the daftness that goes with some of the computer animation and stuff, and the concept, go and check it out. So the other thing I was saying was, each one of these is an alternate. There's always an alternate. So is it all that bad? No, but around the same period, HBO commissioned an animated series of Spawn. I think this runs from 1998 to 2001. Over a period of it's 3 seasons. Each season is 6 episodes long. They're readily available on DVD across the world. You have to track them down, but they're out there, and that is excellent. The HBO animated series is excellent. Spawn is voiced by the amazing Keith David, and was it David Keith? I never remember. But that it's awesome. I highly recommend it. It's bloodier, it's gorier. They understood what they were doing. They read the comics and they felt, the horror's where we should be leading into with this, and they fully lean into it. And it's got some fantastic animation, some great dialogue, and some great horror moments. Like, it's legitimately creepy for a cartoon. It's 18, rated in America, in the UK. I think it's an R or NC-17 in America. But check it out. Highly recommended. Okay, well, hopefully we'll wrap up there. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed this, check out my other videos. Leave a comment below. What other films should I be looking at? What else out there do you think is, gets railed on unfairly? Subscribe if you want to check out what our videos are all about. Subscribe. Press the notification button. And also, we have a podcast, 20th Century Geek Podcast. Check us out on iTunes and all other podcast catchers. Contact me if you want to talk to me. I'm available on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, all under 20th Century Geek, or 20th Century Geek at gmail.com. We're openly available to talk to anybody. Thank you very much for watching the video, and we'll find out another film that maybe ain't that bad next time.